all nerds. But I was an actor. I've been acting since I was a little kid, and some of the people that I grew up around were some of the original actors for ADV films. Amanda Wynn Lee, Allison Keyes. Spike Spencer was my brother's best friend in college. He was just as annoying to me back then. I was the little brother. I was that, he's my brother's friend. But as I started watching anime, I knew those people were working in the field, but I had no interest in watching it in English. But some actors that I worked with, because that was my brother's generation of actors, so then later I worked with some actors, you guys all know these names too, Chris Patton, Monica Rial, these are kids that I performed with. And I was doing a show, I was doing a production of Cabaret with Monica Rial. No, actually, it's further than Cabaret. I was doing a show called Runaways with Monica Rial, and they were looking for a 9-year-old villain in a show called Spriggan. And they had auditioned all the little kids they thought they could find, and they couldn't find a little kid. And Monica and Chris Patton are like, call our friend, he works in a law firm. And they're like, well, no, we need somebody that sounds like a little kid. She's like, he's in his 30s and he sounds like he's 12, just call him. And so then they asked Chris Patton one night, they're like, this guy, this law firm guy that Monica keeps talking about, and he goes, oh yeah, he totally, and Chris Patton and I have known each other since we were like 15. He's like, oh no, he totally sounds just like a little kid. Just call him. Just call him. So my first audition was actually them calling my help desk number at night when I wasn't at my desk. So they got, they just got this, hi, you reached the voice, you reached the desk of Greg Ayres in the offices of Vincent and Elkin. Sorry, I can't come, like that whole, I'll help you with your computer tomorrow, and I care about you, whatever. I love dressing like I work at a bank. Anyway, there's no animosity towards my time wasted in a law firm at all. So they called me in, and so I got this weird message, and I went in and auditioned, and from the minute I walked into the studio for the very first time, nothing was what I expected. It was ADV films. I thought there were life-size mechas there, at least models. I thought they had Gundam models there. No, there's no Gundam models. There were wall scrolls, so there was one thing I had in common. There were a lot of wall scrolls. But the first thing that was weird to me is it was an office not unlike the office I worked in. There was a receptionist. There's people doing a lot of that. There was no one in costume. Shock. And so it was quick. The first thing I realized was oh, this is just some people's jobs. So I came in. I auditioned for, there were 3 rounds of auditions. Now here's the funny story. It ended up being between me and a little kid named Kevin Korn, which is funny because he later went on to get the role, and he and I would be in, Dean Angel together and whatnot. But we were the last 2. So here I am in my 30s, sitting across from a 10-year-old, and I'm giving him dirty looks. And that's when I had to be like, dude, calm down, you're a mad dogging a 10-year-old. But from the minute I walked into the booth, nothing was what I expected it to be. In Japan, all the actors stand around one recording microphone and they all record at the same time. What I walked in to experience was this super high-tech little glass booth, which was cool. I won't lie, I was like, damn. Big, super fancy microphones, almost as big as my head. And then there were 2 other people in the room, a director, and a dude that I didn't understand what he did, but it was the guy that ran the computer, who I would later come to be familiar with as a sound engineer. And those are the only 2 people you ever see. I had animation in front of me, which was really bizarre because I was hearing what was being said in Japanese in my ears, while saying it in English, and trying to keep my eyes on the screen and the script at the same time. And I was like, and there's also people on this window, there are people in the window So, as an actor, I've had people like, I want to be a voice actor, but I don't take direction well. Oh, then this is really not the industry for you, because sometimes you can be mid-line and a director, you'll see the director, you're looking right at them and they're like, I'm like, wait, what did I do? What did I do? So, the other thing about it was how labor intensive it was. You know, as a fan, I always thought, I hear about the way anime is recorded in Japan, and I just thought, well, you just do it all in one shot. I don't know why, as an actor, I would think that would ever work. And no, what you did is you labored over every single line for like 20 or 30 minutes at the time. One line. I know in my first show, when I finally did get cast in a show called Steel Angel Kurumi, I had one line that was just 4 words. People die, things expire. We recorded that line for an hour. And after an hour's time, those words don't even make any sense to you. You might as well just be saying apple, orange, banana, car keys, like, you've just said it so many times, you've just been like, people die, things expire. No, could you emphasize people? Okay, people die, things expire. No, okay, let's emphasize things. Okay, people die, things expire. Okay, so let's try expire. Really? Expire now too? Can you just Franken-clip this all together and do like some, and like, so it was weird to me. It didn't feel like acting. And then there was the added advantage of trying to make it fit in the mouth flaps, which is, as Mike McFarlane and I would later refer to it as data entry acting. You have to act in little spaces. So the tandem recording was totally out the window. I was like, okay, well, this is obviously not the way they do it here. The other thing is, later in my career, I would actually do a tandem recording on a show called Godanner. And I learned that Monica Rial and I should never be allowed to record at the same time, ever. Or nothing will get done. If you have a show about people that giggle a lot, then yes, record that show in one take. And it's so frustrating because when you record in tandem, you might get through 3 or 4 lines. You know, like my line, your line, my line, your line, my line, you just blew it. We have to go back to starting block. I was like, oh. So that was really interesting. I also, any video gamers, like gaming fans, yeah. So in the process of this, I also ended up working on some video games. There's no animation sometimes. I did a Square Enix game, and all I got was a character sketch. Like, what? This is what your little guy looks like. And he was this big fat guy with this little bitty head. And they're like, we don't know if that's what he's going to eventually look like, but that's what we think he's going to look like. And I was like, okay. And luckily for me, they thought it would be funny for this really big guy to have this little bitty voice and like kind of be like a Three Stooges guy. And he was all like, anytime you had to fight an enemy, he's like, I don't know, it looks pretty tasty to me. Like, and so he was like always wanting to eat everything. So that was fine. But as I worked in this industry, I also met people from Japan that do what I do for a living, and I had those questions also answered directly from their mouths. I had a great honor and privilege of doing a panel with Ryo Horikawa, the original voice of Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z. He's also the voice of Eddie Murphy in a live-action film, which is so weird. I mean, like, really, you don't look anything like Eddie Murphy. And it's weird because he actually did this whole thing about how they're hated, how the dub voiceover actors for movies are hated the way anime voiceover actors used to get hated on in the 90s because he's not Eddie Murphy. So like people were like, oh, the Japanese dub of this sucks. And it's like, well, of course I'm not Eddie Murphy. I don't sound this way. So it was interesting how many things we had in common. But when we talked about animation, one of the things that he said that was so revealing to me is that at certain times when they were working on, I won't say a certain giant show that goes on forever and still is on TV regularly that might have the last letter of the alphabet somewhere involved. He said at times what they were working with were production sketches pinned on the wall in front of them, and they did not even have keyline animation. Which keyline animation, and now I'm going to be a total child of the 80s. If you've ever seen the Aha Take On Me video, that's keyline animation. All that black and white line art, that's key animation. When we did Lady Death, we worked with keyline animation. It was all black and white line work, and there